get that Poppy pick. We do know that Prophet likes to play Jace, and while Jace is a soft counter to Poppy early on, he does tend to fall off. But Prophet was basically the puppet master in SK Telecom series, coordinating and orchestrating a lot of very tricky ganks in the 2v2, and that was very impressive to see him display that level of understanding of top lane.
Yeah, he had a really big outplay. I'm trying to remember exactly what it was. I believe his Jace like knocked Lee Sin back under turret, took him out into 2v1. Pretty impressive performance, and we're about to see if they can pull off another one as we get into champion picks and bans for game number 1. MVP starting out on the blue side, facing off against SK Telecom T1 in the red. Starting off with our initial ban, it's Syndra. No surprise, taking that away from Faker.
And Syndra being banned away from Faker, but it is a blue side Syndra ban, and this is something that I've actually talked about before, where it looks a little strange to be banning Syndra on blue side when she is arguably the #1 mid laner right now in the current meta, and so not being able to properly play her or play her at a level where you're comfortable against everything is a little bit strange. SK Telecom, no stranger to having to ban away Nidalee. And it's not like Beyond wouldn't love to play Nidalee. He plays basically every jungler, so pretty standard bans actually coming out from both teams so far. We'll see what the last ban is here in a second.
Yep, and nice respect being given to pretty much all of the lanes we really highlighted there. Junglers being highlighted, and then of course top laners being taken away. The mains for both sides being banned by their own teams, so kind of interesting there. Heading into picks and bans with that picks with the Rise as the final ban for SK Telecom. See what they decide to go for here. With Poppy still available, we talked about how popular that pick was just overall, but also ADD highlighted it as one of his favorite champions. So should expect to see that one instead of the Garen pick. But highlighted, hovered over, and it will be locked in.
Yep, and so Poppy first pick for MVP, no surprise there. It had a super impressive performance on it again last series that MVP played. So now the ball's going to be handed over to SK Telecom, and the Poppy doesn't really give away too much information about MVP's team composition. So SK Telecom right now hovering the Lee Sin and Ashe. That necessarily doesn't give away anything either. Ashe is the current soft counter to Jhin and Caitlyn, so it is probably just a preemptive pick, in which case if Maha elects for either one of those two AD carries, he would be in a little bit of a disadvantageous situation.
Yeah, and Maha, along with guys like Ruler last season of LCK, were really the outstanding Ashe players. Their arrows looked so good, and so no surprise Bang maybe taking that away from one of the best Ashe players in LCK. Now we get a chance to see the next few picks. Now it's still interesting to me to see Bengi in place of Blank, just because it's not the way that they started out their round of 12 performance, but stepping it up here and not willing to make the same mistake that KT made in their series yesterday with not starting off with all guns blazing. Now there's that Jhin pick you were talking about, Ashe being the south counter to. Do you think that's still worth it for Maha to pick up?
Yeah, Jhin and Caitlyn are the king and queen of AD carry right now, so they're not a bad pick by any means. It's just a little bit problematic because you have to find a way to live past level 6 when Ashe gets that enchanted crystal arrow. It can become a very dangerous lane where she can just blow you up, because Caitlyn and Jhin don't really have proper responses to surviving that burst unless it really comes down to the support.
That's where you rewind to season 1 and 2 and take cleanse on your AD carry. The hard counter, man. Not going to see that here, but we are going to see a lock-in on Rumble. So we've only seen, I believe, one Rumble performance so far in KeSPA Cup, and so with that locked in for Prophet, it'll be a little bit of a different style from his, like the Jace that he really crushed on in his first game that he did showcase. So the Karma locked in as well. Unsure if that's going to be for Faker or Wolf. Expect Wolf, but saving that last pick for mid lane is a very common trait that we've seen from a lot of teams, and that's a lock-in for MVP on Victor and Bard.
Yep, so a very standard team composition coming out from MVP right here. They basically have a little bit of everything. They have pick, they have disengage, they have hard damage inside of Jhin and Victor. You can't get much harder than that once you hit 6 items. And SK Telecom, covering their last pick right now. I'm not quite sure exactly what it will be. It's a Galio, and it is locked in.
God! Alrighty then. In an interview before KeSPA Cup, Faker actually said he wanted to pick, highlight, and master a champion that people would recognize as being uniquely his. Is that the Galio? We've seen support greats such as Chowster play support Galio before. I'm rewinding a little bit there. So if Wolf decides to lock that in as support Galio, at least we have some distant precedent. If you want to swap that into mid lane, this is going to be Faker's own pick. The Galio versus Victor. How does that even work, LS?
I actually don't know too much about this matchup. I've never seen it. I don't think I've actually ever seen this matchup before. I just assume that Galio gets bullied early on by Victor. But as we can see, Faker electing for the teleport summoner spell. So he's going to have a lot of ways to live during the laning phase. And once he starts stacking magic resistance, Victor's going to have a bad time. Now, the problem for me, though, is that the very beginning of Galio's ultimate, and well, the ultimate in itself is a channel, and Victor's ultimate on cast cancels channels. So it's going to come down to a little bit of a mind game where if Faker pulls the trigger too early, Ian's going to be able to disrupt that with the Chaos Storm.
Well, there is Faker and his Galio pick along with the rest of SK Telecom T1 facing off against MVP. So get out there on social media, hashtag KeSPA Cup, let everyone know what you're watching. Of course, hashtag SKT win or MVP win to show your support for our teams here today. We are seconds away from one of our last round of 8 matches here at the KeSPA Cup. So let's go ahead and get in the game.
And the flames get higher.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to game number 1 of our KeSPA Cup round of 8 series between MVP, your team on the blue, facing off against Faker and his Galio on SK Telecom. T1 in the red. An interesting matchup, so lots to talk about.
Yeah, interestingly enough, Faker actually electing for the Corrupting Potion early on, and I don't see a way for him to really harass Ian, but that's definitely an interesting start. That's not something I was expecting to see. And we're going to have to just see how he plays out this laning phase, because this is probably the most surprising pick I've seen in Korea in at least a year or so.
And we've seen different eras come out with their own, unique champions that you'll see, picked just kind of randomly. We got to see a Zillion earlier on this tournament, I believe from Edge, and that was a little bit of a throwback. We got to see, I'm trying to think if there are any other really unique champions that we've seen come out. We got to see a Leona a little bit earlier on, but this from Faker is not necessarily just any, random or unique champion. We've seen Faker pull out things like, I guess, mid lane Olaf to counter mid lane Aurelia, and you're like, oh, okay, well, champion on champion, maybe that works, but no, he's actually put in so many games to learn all the subtle nuances, so I'm really excited just to learn a little bit here in the mid lane.
Yeah, and I mean, starting things off also, let's note that Faker does have Strength of the Ages, and so he will be getting a lot more hit points per cannon minion that he is able to kill. And interestingly enough, MVP and SK Telecom's team compositions, at least in the early and mid game, they're going to be very even. But once it reaches the 5-item, 6-item point, I can't see a way in which SK Telecom's actually going to be able to win the game.
So this is really interesting, especially with Strength of Ages. That does mean that perhaps we're going to be seeing more of a tanky Galio kind of style, and with his passive helping him out or giving him bonus stats per magic resistance, you're going to maybe be predisposed to that. So we'll get a chance to see that. If I'm not mistaken, Strength of Ages also gives you bonus health on major monster kills. So when he gets blue buff, he's also going to get stacks on that as well.
Yep. And Bengi actually electing to take the blue. That's something I'm a little bit surprised to see, given that he's an energy jungler. And typically Lee Sin's give away their blue buff to their mid laner.
Also, the relationship between Bengi and Faker has always been one of, Bengi helping Faker out a lot, really sort of being his third summoner spell. But taking the blue buff away is something, like you said, that we haven't seen a whole lot of Lee Sin's do. Interesting to see how that will affect here. Bengi coming around the corner as he comes. Dodge there, goes forced out, and Ian with just the sexiest sidestep away from that Sonic Wave.
Yeah, and that's really unfortunate to have actually missed, because that also would have probably resulted in Ian having to use his summoner spell Flash. And at this point, I mean, mid lane is already off to a very, very poor start for Ian. He has a long way to go until he can reach that Hex Core point, and he doesn't really have a lot of mana left to sustain with. And we can see that Faker's actually trading with him quite well. Faker also has the teleport up still.
Big stat you can see on your screen here, as far as gold per minute, comparing SK Telecom to MVP over the course of this past season, every minute that goes by, SK Telecom makes almost 500 more gold. So you take 2 minutes going by, that's 1,000 more gold for SKT. 3 minutes, 1,500. It's just kind of a mind-boggling stat to see how good they are at just sort of, strip mining the League of Legends Rift for all of its resources.
Yeah. And right now, I mean, SK Telecom off to a little bit of a gold lead. A lot of that, I feel, is coming from the top lane, as we can see that Prophet, already at 4.5 minutes, is up to a 8 CS advantage.
That's pretty significant, and we talk about this pretty consistently, how Poppy, along with the rest of really MVP's roster, will scale insanely, but you just have to make sure that you can get out of the relatively weak early game on her. And for Ed, when he says that she's, at least to him, the strongest champion in the top lane, you got to know that he's pretty practiced on doing that. We'll see if he can handle Prophet's new aggression.
Yep. And again, Poppy, not a champion that is necessarily judged by her ability to keep up in CS, but rather how far behind she does not fall.
That's an interesting way to phrase it, but yeah, you just gotta hang on as long as you can, and there you can see Ed clearing out the wave, heading back to base, and probably going to elect to use that teleport to return to the top lane. See what his first item buy is, see how he breaks on that gold, but actually Faker, now after having used his teleport to return to lane, has a little bit of pressure, so he has gone for that Dark Seal to amplify the healing from his Corrupting Potion. Yep,
and beyond, everyone knows where he is right now. And Faker doing a pretty good job here on this Galio. He is out farming Ian, which is probably not a situation that you want to be in as Victor.
It's also kind of impressive because he actually missed like at least half a wave early on under turret, and he's still able to come back and get all this CS. And he's actually able to stand up in the wave and melee auto-attack these minions against a Victor who's traditionally pretty good at harassing melees when they go to clear the wave that way. But now walking forward, he's hit that level 6. Oh, the flash away! Ian preempting Faker's initiation.
Yeah, and that was actually a really good play by Faker, because if he does get the taunt onto Ian there, then certainly Bengi would be able to follow up and knock him down. And these are the type of roams, by the way, coming in right now that I've talked about Ed, where he loves to live in the mid lane, and Bengi is here. Faker,
oh my god, even Beyond exactly where he needed to be. He had Beyond actually flash over that tiny little wall to fire his cocoon at a range that would at least force Faker's flash out, and it did.
Yep. And now Prophet is going to be the one roaming down, and this is just going to be to keep Ed back a little bit, but I don't think he's going to be able to do too much.
Ed getting a little bit lucky there on the buckler as well, bouncing toward him, so Prophet couldn't actually continue the trade. But now it's Prophet's turn to get a little bit adventurous and head down around the mid lane. He has hit level 6, so he does have his equalizer, but with no idle Duran there for Faker, I don't believe there's too much of a combo in Prophet. After harassing the Scuttlecrab, we'll head back to top lane.
And now Bengi just getting his red buff, as blue looks to be handed off over to Ian, as he definitely needs to stay in this lane a little bit longer to get that. Oh no, blue cannot reset. All right.
Okay. Wow. That would have been a little bit close. And then you see that awkward moment where they realize it's resetting. They desperately try to dish out as much damage as they can, but it's just not enough. In the end, blue buff does still go over to Ian, who I guess is in a decent spot in the mid lane, but was forced to go double Dorans early instead of really that optimal Victor build path with the Hex Core upgrade.
Right, and right now, we're not seeing a lot of action out of either jungler. You see Bengi recalling again after completing his left side jungle, and Beyond and Bengi not really doing too much. We did see a little bit of activity in the mid lane, but for the most part, the onus is on Bengi to actually make something happen because MVP is the scaling team composition. So while Beyond obviously would like to find kills sometimes, it's not necessarily something that is necessary for them to advance forward in this game.
Oh, going into Wolf, actually getting a decent amount of harass. Maha's movement on that Jhin has actually been so cool to watch, able to avoid all the ranged harass that Bang and Wolf, as that very poke-heavy bottom lane, can throw out.
Yep, and here's that level 6 timing by Bang. They have to be a little careful right now. And it looks like the lane will reset, and Beyond recalling, so probably everyone going to play a little bit safe right now.
Decent ward coverage down there. Still keeping an eye on the mid lane, at least on the mini-map. I always kind of look over there just to see exactly what's happening. Faker up 10 CS, not really deterred in pretty much any way from having a successful lane phase. And while Ian has been able to secure that initial Hex Core upgrade, so he will be able to Death Ray the wave down a little bit easier, still has yet to see anything too concrete develop out on the map as both teams stay within 1,000 gold heading through the 10-minute mark.
Yep, Faker going to be handed off blue buff for right here, and SK Telecom still in a gold advantage. Most of that is from the top lane CS discrepancy, but I mean, moving forward, first dragon of the game is a water dragon, not something that either team really wants to heavily prioritize. No opportunity has really presented itself to capture that. And so I don't expect that we're actually going to even see fights over it. I feel like that dragon will mostly just be an opportunistic Drake.
Faker getting some good trades thanks to that bulwark. It should also be noted, because we don't actually have to talk about Galio spells for, well, I haven't had to do that for basically forever. When you have max rank level 5 bulwark, that gives 90 armor and MR to whoever you put it on, and then also it's going to give that healing back. But you put that on guys like Bang, your AD carry all of a sudden just like grabbed a couple of chain vests and just like slung them over his shoulder, and is a lot less destructible than you're used to. Now Bengi forced to flash over the wall. Bard ult dodged away from him, but they're coming through the magical journey. A nice hit there, and Bengi's doing the utmost. He's now on the other side, staying safe with the Crux. Safeguards right back over to join the rest of SKT. Going forward for first blood with a kill onto Max. And Bengi, the mastermind, able to completely manipulate that situation.
Yeah, that was a pretty good outplay by SK Telecom right there, managing to get that first blood up on Bengi, and here comes the opportunistic Drake that I was talking about. I assume that they'll take it. Okay, well, there's a little bit of damage right there, but we're going to see the replay. So Max using his ultimate, even though he was going to take the magical journey, a little bit of a misstep, and that was actually a really cute dragon kick as everyone went into the skies. And right there, when the Ash Hour comes out onto Max, there's no hope for them to escape. You saw Bengi holding on to reactivating that Q right there, trying to possibly give the kill over to Bang, as that would be a better place to have the first blood gold. But nonetheless, SK Telecom picking up a nice advantage early on.
And for Bengi as well, in his matchup against Beyond, that's something that I also kind of want to highlight. Last season, Beyond beat or tied every single member of SKT in MVP points. So this is a guy that when his team wins, they win because he's actually just so good. So really, really interested to see how he fares off against a guy like Bengi, who now has this 400 gold steroid given to him. Beyond went mobility boots early, so that's trying to get around the map and make a lot of things happen. And it's actually Bang to strike first.
Yeah, but
or Bengi.
Problem with the mobility boots first, and we'll hold that thought.
Oh, flash for flash. The tether will not lash. Ghost forced out as well as Ian's flash. So a good roam mid from Wolf.
Yep. Good roam indeed, as now Ian's going to be under a lot of pressure by Faker. Going back to the Beyond itemization choice, the mobility boots is definitely very interesting, given that he has 3 scaling lanes, and all he really ever needs to do is match gank or counter gank. So the mobility boots, generally a proactive boot choice in making ganks, I think is a little bit questionable here.
And this is one of the combos SKT was trying to set up. They were having Bang rotate up towards mid to try to land an arrow onto an Ian who would most likely have been locked up by the idle Duran from Faker. It's a cool combo, but in that situation, Ian's playing very, very well. He'd just gotten ganked. He knew he had no summoners, so he's staying safe at his turret. Or even behind his turret in this situation after having just picked up blue.
Yeah, and game taking a little bit of a breather. as both junglers have recalled temporarily. And Faker just trying to get some vision in right now. It looks like he can shut the wave and roam pretty easily right now. And Ian on that Victor, generally Victor's the one whose lane shoving ability generally isn't matched. And so it's a little bit interesting to see Victor actually being constantly shoved underneath the tower. This is something that usually only Talia or Azir did, and
Teleport coming down. Wolf actually going around behind that Tempered Fate. Now he's going to be caught out in the middle of almost the entire MVP squad. That's the first kill on the board for MVP, but the equalizer coming down from Prophet beyond trying to wait it out before getting out, and he will thanks to a nice disengage from Ed.
Yep. So using that teleport pretty nicely, able to find themselves a kill right there. And we can see the Ed actually running back up to top lane. And this is the type of pressure stuff that I was talking about in the pick ban, where Ed seems to like to give Ian a lot of help and support. And
oh, but he might be in a little bit too rough a spot here. Faker does not have his ultimate.
Yep.
So he won't be able to lock him into place.
So Faker being forced to recall right here, and that's going to give Ian some breathing room in mid lane. And without having, oh, never mind, Faker cancels his teleport.
Take a look at this bottom lane gank again. The Tempered Fate really puts Wolf in a rough spot.
Yeah, so you can see that Faker's actually recalling, and I think the Chaos Storm was called down on him on the mini-map. And when Wolf goes down, and without Faker to really come here and help, the fight basically just ends for SK Telecom. Ed able to knock Prophet away a little bit.
Rumble's mech was not built for that.
Yep.
In the mid lane at the same time, we didn't need a chance to to check it out, but Faker was actually able to, or tried once again to channel his idol onto Ian. It didn't work out, and so Ian was able to push him back. Neither player expended summoner spells or died from it, so just a little bit of an altercation going there that did prevent either one of them from really impacting the bottom lane. Nice to see, though, Ed really mobile across this map, and Prophet kind of matching him step for step.
Very nice. Laser right there, able to CS the lane pretty quickly. Sometimes Victors actually mess up and only get 5 out of 6.
Like, that's how you tell the difference between the good Victors and the great Victors, LS.
Yeah. A little bit of poke by Faker. And I mean, it seems right now that Victor can actually outdeal the Galio pick right now. It seems like Faker's damage output and sustained damage is much greater than Ian's Victor, at least at this point.
Both mid laners owned a pawn shop. You'd get more for your money at Faker's store because he can outdeal him. There we go, getting on to Beyond, pushing him back away from his own jungle, but now trying to find something. Bengi getting locked up against the wall. There's the Tempered Fate. Chaos Storm right on top of it. Here comes the Curtain Call, but Faker's blocking it out. In the end, it's Beyond able to take out his opposing jungler. Faker trying to get out as well, avoiding that deadly flourish, and SKT will retreat back to the bottom half of the map after losing their jungler.
Yeah, and that was a pretty good dodge by Faker just now. That situation probably could have gotten a little bit uglier. And that was a pretty good captured opportunity by MVP, so we're going to see it again. So MVP right here with Max, able to lock up Bengi, and Max doing a phenomenal job right here with constant chain CC, and right there Beyond able to get the kill onto Bengi, and then it looked like Faker was going to be poised to go down, and I question if that snare had actually hit by Maha, if he would in fact have gone down or be forced to use this flash over the Dragon Wall.
Great dodge there. Faker stays alive, and little tiny plays being made. That one, I gotta say, like you mentioned, Max so good at his Tempered Fates here. They've really been instrumental in MVP picking up both of their kills so far after helping them grab it onto Wolf in the bottom lane earlier. So still, even though with these kills and these fights going MVP's way, SKT's still ahead on gold. And while it's not quite in keeping with their 500 additional gold per minute stat we saw earlier from the regular season, they are still finding little leads. They're going to have the first dragon. They're going to look to pick up the first turret here as well, but Bang might have overcommitted.
Oh my! Wolf's flash!
That's insane. And he is able to block pretty much everything from getting onto Bang, who will turn around, throw an arrow, but it will be repelled away from. In the end, it's actually going to be Wolf that does fall. Can they chase on for more? Ed going deep. There's going to be that, deadly flourish. They'll catch one. There's going to be another double knockup, and Ed's just doing the utmost. Max coming around the corner. Bengi trying to run for his life. He's sticking down. There's the laser from Ian! to crush him to take a 3-for-0 exchange.
And you have to wonder right here, where was Prophet or where was Faker? Running dual teleport, it's very uncharacteristic to see your team falling to very extended trades like this. And look at that flash one roll right at the very beginning to keep Bang alive. That was a pretty big hero play. Even though he goes down in the end, you're really going to hand it to him because that reaction speed was so quick. And unfortunately for them, the curtain call came out at the end, and it gave Ed the ability to get onto both of the members of SK Telecom. And at this point, when Ian arrived, it was too little, too late for Bengi to try to manage to continue to escape. And they did get a tower out of this, SK Telecom, but MVP looking so good right now in this game.
Oh my god. In the mid lane, meanwhile, while all that was going on, Faker was able to force out Ian's flash by getting right on top of him underneath turret when he was very low. So that might have been why Faker was not teleporting down there. And for Prophet, that's the big mystery for me. When you see your opposing top laner channel his teleport, you got to look for a good opportunity to turn that around, and so many ones for Prophet to take that he just didn't. So in the end, it's still a good play from MVP, but look at what SKT are doing off the back of that. They're snowballing this into objective leads even after losing a fight, taking that mid lane turret, arrow onto Max immediately. He's going to get caught there by the idol turret, and Bengi gets right on top of him. There's a lot of damage coming in from Ian. It's actually going to be Bengi going down.
Yeah, so they trade Bengi for Max right there, and that I don't think is going to be the best of trades that you would want. Prophet and Ed having a little bit of a skirmish up there in top lane. Prophet also looks like he was able to steal away the blue buff, and that's very painful when you're a Victor player. So SK Telecom, they hold a temporary gold advantage, and it's inside of those towers right now.
Let's go take a replay on this fight. Max getting caught out, but just barely snagged by Faker's ult.
Yeah, so Ian, the problem there was that Ian actually also got caught up inside of the taunt. Otherwise, he's able to cast that Chaos Storm as soon as Faker begins his channel, and it cancels it, because that is one of the lesser-known passives of Victor's ultimate.
Yeah, a lot of champions that used to have silences got interrupts instead. Guys like Kassadin on the Null Spheres, so same thing for Chaos Storm here. Going to interrupt that, and an interaction that I have no idea in what other situation we'd be able to really get a chance to see that, but good thing that we can reference that here. Faker 1-0, so I'm not sure if this is counted as a success, but I'm actually really most interested in, once we get to that 30-35 minute mark when the worth of champions is really well established, is this the pick that you can do something with that? And maybe talk a little bit about what Galio offers team comps in this meta that maybe other mid laners don't.
Well, honestly, the Galio pick is certainly interesting, but generally you would expect to see it against double magic compositions or double AP mid and top laners. And so the fact that they picked this last against MVP, who had already shown the Poppy pick, is a little bit interesting because the only major sources of magic damage coming out from MVP is going to be on that Victor, given that Beyond has the ability to elect into a defensive Elise build, which we can see that he is doing in that itemization right now. And so because of that, Faker's forced to itemize a little bit differently because there isn't that absurd amount of magic coming out from MVP. And so the pick is a little interesting, and also it's a little unfortunate that it's picked into a Victor who has two different ways to stop the ultimate from Faker, put one inside of the gravity field and the other as the Chaos Storm. So the pick is a little bit suspicious, but we still have yet to see what they're going to do with it as we reach the later stages of the game.
And it should be noted, kind of an interesting build here for Faker on his Galio, Spirit Visage and Rod of Ages along with Mercury Treads. A lot of times you used to go things like Abyssal Scepter or, well, way back in the day it was Athenes, but that has been sufficiently changed. So why do you think he's opted to not go Abyssal? Is it just because he's not dealing with such a heavy magic damage team?
I feel like that is probably one of the reasons. An alternative also could have possibly even been a Banner of Command if there was a double magic team in addition to the magic damage jungler. But I feel like his itemization choice is probably the best given the situation that he's in. He certainly does want a lot of hit points, and he doesn't need too much magic resistance given that the Bulwark will obviously aid in some of that, and really the only source of big damage will come out of Ian.
And when you consider that, along with the strength of Aegis Mastery, Faker is actually just going to be insanely tanky. But oh, Prophet, oh, there's a flash in to flash the opposite direction. He knows he's got a teleport coming in, but can he hang on for long enough? Prophet, though, does still have that equalizer, knock away that does affect Prophet a lot. He's trying to make his desperate escape with the second cocoon. It does the charm. It's Ed to take him out in the end.
Yeah, and that was pretty unfortunate by SK Telecom, and Ed is actually so good at just denying teleports or attempts to come into fights by opponents.
Ults, just about everything. You can't get in there if Ed's got his Poppy on lock. Now, Faker also did commit his teleport down to the bottom lane. He's going to get in there, lock up Ian, but there's exactly what you mentioned. A Bartle into a gravity field, into all this damage coming out from Ian, and while Faker is, in fact, ridiculously tanky, can SKT survive and escape alive? And it looks like they can, unless Ed has something to say about it. Slowed out there by Wolf Soul Flare, but in the end, everyone's surviving from SK Telecom, with the exception of Prophet from earlier.
And I feel like we just actually got a little bit of a glimpse of what is to come the longer this game goes on. Ian and Maha don't have the damage yet. They're not those super just threatening damage dealers that we know Jhin and Victor are capable of doing. And hold that thought as we take a quick look at the replay down here. So I feel like beyond actually missing the cocoon is why Faker channeled his teleport, and that was actually a pretty big, even better win for MVP as they were able to pick up Prophet in the extended trade and get the teleport away from Faker. But going back to the fight that then take place after this, SK Telecom doesn't actually have a proper way of combating MVP's team composition.
Yeah, it turns out Galio is a little bit less effective when you just can't use your ultimate pretty much at all. Lots of ways to cancel that, like you just saw in that last fight. Now, afterwards, in the aftermath, SK Telecom was able to pick up their second Ocean Drake, and now they've decided to swap their lanes up a little bit. They've got Faker up in the top lane 1v1 versus Ed, and the rest of SKT going to group around mid. What do you think is behind this different rotation?
Well, at this point of the game, MVP definitely wants to keep their bottom lane in mid. There's no turrets remaining in the bottom half of the map, and obviously Jhin being in the mid lane is going to be most beneficial to anyone who tries to go top or bottom, because you can just sort of move Jhin into the river to start casting that curtain call. So it's going to be the best lane to have Jhin in. All that's happening right now is both teams are basically just posturing, waiting for a few more items to be picked up by both sides, and then we'll start seeing team fights actually break out as Baron is on the map, and it's a very real possibility for both of these teams.
So Faker goes top, clears a wave, runs back to mid. Then he sort of swaps with Prophet, who goes top, clears a wave, and now he's back to mid. In the meantime, MVP sent Ian on his Victor up there, shove it right back. So that's going to freeze up top, and now it's SKT sending yet a third champion up to the top lane to grab a wave. What's with that rotation?
Well, Prophet's the only one that currently has teleport still remaining. So any sort of split push or side lane, you definitely want Prophet to be in it until Faker has his teleport up. At some point in the game, though, SK Telecom will actually have the gear that they can activate in a 1-3-1 because of that dual teleport. But while Faker still has his teleport up on cooldown, that's not something that you can really make use of right now.
All right. So Prophet and Ed, both with their teleports available, head towards the bottom half of the map. But now you can actually see Ed running forward. Arrow hits onto Max. He's immediately going to QSS his way out of that and get back to a good position. Ed very tanky, but he's actually going to try to knock somebody away. Doesn't get it. Now he's beset by Bengi over the wall. There's the gravity field in the back lines, but it's not really going to lock anyone up just yet. And SKT push MVP back. MVP do survive successfully, though.
Yep. MVP do manage to live right there. They didn't have Ian for that fight, so that could definitely get a little bit scary. Any fight without Ian is so much more dangerous.
Keeping an eye on there. Lots of CC on a Faker. He will get locked up. Does still have that idol of Duran if he wants to turn it on. There's the Chaos Storm and putting out the damage. Trying to push SKT back. Look at that Bulwark just heal him back up. I'm pretty sure he finished that fight higher health than he began it. So it was a little bit difficult to say. So all that to say, Faker pretty darn strong at this point, only looking to get stronger. What do you think that needlessly large rod is going into?
I'm not entirely sure what that needlessly large is. He might just actually be looking for straight up damage going into a death cap, because he has had it for a little while now. The only other option, I guess, is going to be...
Oh, catch on to Wolf, who's dropping incredibly low, still alive, just barely somehow, and Wolf's going to walk out. That's that Karma survivability, flashing away from Ed, and he will survive how. Beyond and Max the casualties though, and it looks like maybe Ed might still go down. There's the idol Duran locking him back in. Not what he wanted to worship, and it's a 3-for-0 in SKT's favor.
Yeah, and that's probably going to be Baron going over to SK Telecom, and this is a very unfortunate turn of events for MVP, as SKT making use of their ability to pick people off, and MVP need to be together. They can't ever actually win 4v4s or 4v5s, 3v3s, etc. They need straight-on 5v5s. They will never win a fight that's not a 5 versus 5.
Well, let's watch how on earth does Wolf survive here.
So the heal coming out from Bang gives Wolf the ability to basically manage to get away by the skin of his teeth, and at that point, Ed not able to find any way into the back of the team and getting slowed up and eventually taunted by Faker means that he goes down as well, and you can't fight like this if you're MVP.
Absolutely. Also want to point out, SK Telecom perfectly using Faker's Righteous Gust to all sort of funnel in behind him and get that sort of headwind passive to have that extra movement speed, keep up, catch out ADD or Ed, and take him out in the end. So really incredible. And what champion has the highest KDA in the game right now, LS? It's gonna be Galio.
I guess it's Galio indeed.
Oh boy. All right.
Jhin.
Okay, well.
Jhin.
Curses. Foiled again.
Yeah.
So close. Anyway, SKT poised to put themselves in a too dominant of a position, one that maybe MVP won't be able to come back from, and they're doing it sort of slow and steadily. They found the pick that they needed to. In the last fight, actually, Wolf was the one that got picked, and that was exactly what SKT were able to turn around. Now Faker walking forward, way too tanky for MVP to deal with really at this point, although barely catching Bang there with a Tempered Fate, and here comes Ed to really knock that SKT carry away. Will we be able to see anybody go down? Faker actually dropping the idol, catching multiple members of MVP and totally turning the fight around. Ed goes in, but he's gonna go down. Faker flashing out immediately to stay alive. Prophet taking up that turret. He's gonna stay alive just barely at the end with Azanya's Hourglass. SK Telecom in the end lose their carry, but take out 3 from MVP and push into their base.
Yeah, and oh, beautiful teleport by Faker right there to lock up that turret, and it's gonna enable them to push on. Not that it would have been needed to capture the inhibitor, but definitely helps them nonetheless speed that process up, and now they're moving towards mid lane, and Faker just gonna take the turret.
What's a turret? Hey, did turrets deal damage, LS?
Apparently not.
No, yeah, probably. There we go. Faker back up to full health. Doesn't afraid of anything.
Yeah, you can just basically see this team fight, and it started off so well for them. As you can see, the Chaos Storm just makes its way around, but look at what happened. Ian stepped too close to Faker, and them getting locked up is just really good, reverse opportunity by SK Telecom to punish them for making that mistake. And SKT turns the fight on its head. It was looking really bad for SK Telecom.
I want to point out the only reason that Bang died in that fight is because Max landed the hardest to hit Cosmic Binding that caught him right before he was able to get out of there. Kill him off, but in the end, SKT take the fight. But now it's MVP's turn to try to pick something up. They already have a Mountain Drake, and now they're going to stack an Ocean on top of it. So both teams with 2 dragons apiece, and SK Telecom's Baron is actually just about to wear off. Ian, as well, going to steal away a blue buff. So MVP really getting right back out there on the map and taking a few objectives for themselves.
Yep. And I want to point out that Ian's build order is a little bit questionable. I understand that he had his Negatron Cloak earlier on, but if you're looking at SK Telecom and how they're itemizing, you would actually think that Leandri's Torment would probably be not that bad of an item.
Faker gonna get it locked up along with Bang. Can Max land at the Cosmic Binding he needs? He does lock up Faker. There's the curtain call towards the backline. Faker actually taking a lot of help, but there's gonna be the Mikhail to keep him back alive even further. Chaos Storm in the backline actually chunked Bang way out, but Beyond barely surviving will keep everyone alive on both sides. And now Maha trying to put the damage out. Faker getting locked up again, but he just doesn't care. Nothing can kill this unstoppable Galio, and Faker tanking everything MVP has to throw at him.
Yeah, and that's going to be the second inhibitor of the game, falling for SK Telecom, and that thing just does not die.
I don't know, we saw Roach play yesterday, but Faker looking like a cockroach because there's no way to kill him.
Yep, and I mean, just look at this, and I feel like MVP mistakenly actually tunneling on this Galio right here. Faker channeling his inner Teemo passive as the rest of SK Telecom being completely ignored. And I feel like this is some team fighting mistake that MVP are not adapting well to the Galio pick, and SK Telecom using it in full effect.
Yeah, the unkillable Demon King here to stay, and now Faker, the strong, gets stronger. Can you quickly count those little bars in Faker's HP bar for me, LS? Just a little. It's almost 5,500 gold Baron power play there for SK Telecoms. They crack not one but 2 inhibitors. Put a ward in the base that can be teleported to by Prophet, who's got his up on time, but wow, just it was the death cap that you were talking about, looking for more damage, and a void staff on top of it. So Faker at this point, I mean, all he's missing is turning his dark seal into a little bit more stacking up. I don't think he's gonna go for that quite yet, but we'll see. Faker getting a little bit. Okay, I say he's like, okay, he's taking the turret. Where's the damage there? And when turrets really don't mean anything, that Omewrecker guy gets a little bit sadder.
Yep.
All you need is a Galio to take it up. I don't even know how this is.
That champion just doesn't take damage.
This reminds me of, what is it, Earth mode Galio, where you just play Galio, never die ever. Well, that's what Faker has obviously been practicing his fair share of. Then gonna get locked up there. Here comes Ed trying to knock somebody out of the fight. Faker does start taking a little bit too much damage, but he's just unkillable. Ian in the front lines actually will pop as the second casualty there for MVP, who just have no health bars to continue fighting that fight, and Faker survives through it all.
Yeah, and I wonder if this will be the end of the game. Double teleport coming in from SK Telecom.
Oh my god! I'm not sure that's what you wanted to do. Wolf does die because of it, but Faker teleporting back in to try out his invulnerability again.
Let's see him tank the fountain.
All right, he's going for it. Unfortunately, true damage does not quite work on that. I'm just watching Faker heal up as the Nexus has the opposite effect. It will fall, and in the end, it is an 11-9 victory for SK Telecom over MVP.